Adrian, do you know what the worst hand you could possibly have in blackjack is?
I believe it's a two queens split.
No. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, that's certainly not the factoid that I looked up.
Okay.
The one I found said 16 is the worst hand you can have in blackjack.
Oh, I'm thinking of poker. Correct. 16
Not
is
the
the
topic
worst.
of the
Yeah.
movie today. Because if you
16 is the worst, yes.
you're likely to go over 21. If you stay, the dealer is more likely to beat you. It's just typical 21 nonsense. Anyhow, welcome back to the Drive Back Podcast. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Adrian.
And today we have a Rewatchables, which is what, Adrian?
Where Garrett and I both rewatch a movie and let you know if it's worth rewatching.
That is absolutely correct. And today is one that Adrian apparently talks about this movie all the time.
Yeah.
And
Parts of it, yeah.
And I completely forgot that I had seen this movie. So we're on two opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to memories of this movie. Today's movie is, in fact, 21. And Adrian, I know you were the one that kind of brought this up. Obviously, we talked about how you have talked about it for a very long time. But what made you want to bring it up for a rewatchable?
One, we just got off of a bunch of casino movies, so I was definitely in the mood to watch a casino movie. But yeah, I mean, I just really liked this movie when it came out. I thought it was really neat. Blackjack is my game of choice at a casino. I tend to win some pretty good money at it, because I feel like there's actually some skill involved. Not as much as poker, but like as far as like it's not just straight up risking. So I thought it's super interesting. I think that it's definitely the one, obviously, that is very much well known for people counting cards and all that stuff. So I just find it interesting.
For sure. I think it's definitely a lot easier to learn to how to play this than Texas Hold'em or something like that, which I would say I like to play Texas Hold'em more, but if I was going to gamble, I would do blackjack, just because it's a lot more straightforward. You don't have to worry about flushes and straights and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I had seen this movie so long ago that I had completely forgotten that I had watched this movie. And then as I was watching it, I was like, oh, wait, I have seen this. I saw this, when I was in, I think, this would have been, early high school when it came out for me. So
Sure, yeah.
I was like, all right, well, we'll take another look at it. But let's go ahead. We'll dive into what it is for today. Released in 2008, 21 was directed by Robert Leketic. Hope I'm saying that correctly. And stars Jim Sturgis, Kate Bosworth, and Kevin Spacey. 21 is the fact-based story about 6 MIT students who were trained to become experts in card counting and subsequently took Vegas casinos for millions in winnings.
That's right.
So Adrian, some quick spoiler-free thoughts before we give a quick spoiler warning.
Yeah, I think this movie's just for fun. Like, I don't think it takes itself too seriously. I think it's a good ride. A little predictable at times, but I still think it's fun.
Sure. I do not like this movie.
Figure.
I went in expecting to like it, actually. I rewatched the trailer and I was like, okay, this seems like it'll be more fun than I remember. And we're on that casino kick from the Ocean's movies we just covered. And this movie's boring. Like it takes the concept and it doesn't do enough with it for me. They reference Rain Man, which I feel like does it a little way bit better than this movie. Maybe because there's more of an emotional attachment to that. But as we'll get into when we actually talk more about spoilers, the characters in this movie I just hate. They're bland, they're flat. Specifically, the main character. And again, we'll get to that when we get to it. Funny enough, I think the best part of the movie is Kevin Spacey. Because typically he is the best part of any project he's in. Not anymore, but before everything kind of went down, he was one of the best actors around. So, let's go ahead and drop a spoiler warning for 21. If you want to watch 21, I think the last time we were on the podcast, we said it was on Hulu. And apparently on October 1st or whatever, it's switched over to Netflix. So it's on Netflix now. So if you want to watch it, it's on Netflix.
Crazy how stuff switches like that.
I mean, hey, that's why we have the Just Watch app. Please sponsor us, Just Watch. That would be great. Not fishing for any sponsorships there. But let's go ahead and talk about some spoilers for 21. I don't feel like there's a whole lot to spoil except for one major kind of twist.
Kind of like the whole ending portion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like though once the major twist happens, you know that's going to happen.
Without spoilers, but once like the conflict breaks out, you kind of know where the whole movie's headed. That's kind of what I was saying about like it being a little predictable. But I think Lawrence Fishburne was arguably the best part of this
He was
movie.
also good too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he did really, really well. I didn't think Ben was necessarily flat. I just think he was playing a numbers guy, and I think he played someone that thinks that way pretty well. I like obviously I don't think like if you were to play an extroverted role, I think he'd play something very differently. But someone that is just so heads down, kind of being thrown into this lifestyle, I think it made a lot of sense.
I don't know. It felt interesting because not interesting, I should say, because like I understand a player, not a player, an actor, playing someone who is a blank slate so that you can project yourself onto them. I understand that practice with books, movies, TV shows, video games, whatever. But here, he's almost emotionless. The time I felt like he was actually giving the most was when he was in, spoiler, the part where he's getting beat up by Lawrence Fishburne.
Sure.
I
Guess it felt more like he was always analyzing, like he was always just critically thinking about everything.
Yeah, but like they I don't know. I never like maybe I just wasn't paying attention enough. I don't know.
What?
But like I never feel like they justified why he was like super smart, other than just he's smart.
I mean, he was really good with numbers the whole time.
I mean, yeah, but like there could have been that sequence like, oh yeah, in elementary school I did this, this, and this. Even like that little like 2 minute montage in the beginning that shows like, oh, I developed an interest in numbers this way, or like I nailed this test, or whatever
Yeah,
it may
he
be.
scored like exceptionally well on
But he
numbers
says
tests.
that way later in the movie and doesn't justify it at the beginning. So like even then, like if it had been like an Ocean's 11 or like a who's that director? I can never remember the name of. Guy Ritchie, like a Guy Ritchie style like montage in the beginning, like that would have been
Sure.
much more charismatic and interesting. But yet he just looks like he's the backup singer. Like oh, our main singer for Hawthorne Heights is sick this weekend. Get this guy in there because he looks just like him.
Sure.
He just looks like an emo teen that cut his hair a little bit and was like, I'm an MIT student now for this movie. Super boring and super just flat. Like when I think of like generic white male main character, this is now at the top of my head.
Huh, yeah, just didn't get that. I thought he was definitely serviceable. I thought he did an okay job.
Well, that's why we have opinions. I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, like I can see how some people could latch on to the character. It just didn't work for me.
I feel like I'd like to correct. I didn't latch on to him. I just
No,
thought
I mean,
he was
like-
serviceable.
You know what I mean? Like they can at least appreciate it more than I did. Like it just
Sure.
the character itself didn't work for me. Neither did any of the other students. I feel like you have the quirky Asian guy who's stealing everything from the hotel rooms and the maid carts. You have the two female characters which don't get enough of like screen time except for Kate Bosworth because she's the love interest and then she gets a little bit more. Besides like the anti-woman statement that Kevin Spacey says like during the whole thing is like, I need a big player and I don't trust the women. It's like, okay, why? But I don't know. They didn't do anything for me. They didn't like. There's also the one guy that sabotages the entire thing, and then
Oh yeah, that was kind of like I guess a little twist, but
but it was
that didn't really do that much.
it felt
for
like it
me.
was out of nowhere, and then like
Yeah.
it didn't like it would have been so much interesting if that guy went to the security heads and was like, hey, look out for these people, and created another level of conflict. That could have been interesting. I'm not saying it was good, but like they dropped it after he went home.
Yeah, they definitely didn't do as much with it as I think they could have. But I don't know. I still just think that the concept, like, I don't think this movie's trying to be Ocean's 11. I don't think it's trying
Yeah.
to be a grand heist movie. I think it's trying to tell the story of the real thing that happened. And I actually went to school with my economics professor at West Valley. Gosh, I can't remember his name, and I'm so sorry if you happen to be listening to this, but he went through the initial rounds of that circle of testing to be in it at MIT. And everyone, of course, was like, well, how was the movie 21? He said, well, some things are definitely like filmified. He said that's mostly how it went down. Like they earned a lot of money and they got in a lot of trouble, and those people learned really good skills, and they probably still do them to this day, but it's all untrackable and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But he wasn't in the group, but he knew people that were, for sure. And so I think it's interesting when you try to take something that's based on a true story, because like I don't know the full deal, but like the whole plot point, right, of the betrayal or getting jealous, if that's really what happened, it's hard to say like that's a bad twist, because that's just what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the best way I can describe this movie, and I was kind of thinking about this while you were talking, is that I would have rather seen a more true to life, more accurate version of what the actual people did. That could be much more interesting. You could turn that into a TV show or a miniseries like Queen's Gambit, and I think it'd be very successful. But especially after Queen's Gambit, I feel like casino or gaming type shows with a level of acting in it could be very good.
Yeah.
But this instead feels like we're going to take this concept and they CW-fied it. They literally took a cool concept and they made it super soapy and melodramatic and just like, these are MIT students. They're not, these feel like ASU students, not MIT students.
I guess I don't get that, because I've tried to learn how to count cards and it's very difficult. I'm sure if I really dedicated myself to do it, I could learn. But I don't know. I think it's their whole plan that they have in place. While definitely foilable now, I think for the time it was definitely a cutting edge scheme.
Definitely. And it has its merits. And counting cards, by the way, is still not illegal.
Yeah, no, you could do it.
Yeah, I mean,
you'll get asked to leave when they find out, but you won't get arrested or anything.
Do they take your money when you ask you to leave?
They'll make you cash out.
I mean, if you're already a couple, if you're ahead,
but but typically what happens is if you get caught, you don't usually go for that much money, because then if they flag it, you get banned from the casino.
Oh, gotcha.
So you usually, like, people that are really good at counting cards, one, we'll never know them, but two, we they over time they earn a lot. So like they'll only win a little bit so that they don't raise too much attention, then they leave.
Yeah. Or just go to the smaller casinos where it doesn't matter if you're banned. Then you can keep going to the big ones. And
you also have to lose every once in a while too. You have to lose big. Like you can't always win big, or else you get flat. So it's like a whole thing, and I think that's what I think this movie does that's so fun, is it kind of just sheds a little bit of light as movie-fied as it is. I think it's just a fun time. Like I didn't think it was exceptional, but I don't think it's bad.
I mean, I would disagree. I think this movie is just not very interesting. I think it's just boring.
You may have been tainted coming off of Ocean's 11 and having such a killer casino heist movie. But
I've also seen better movies about poker. I've seen better movies about people who are very smart using their abilities.
Good Will Hunting.
I mean, I would rather watch Good Will Hunting than this movie in a heartbeat.
I think a lot of people would. That movie's like critically acclaimed.
Yeah, which I still will not live that down. But that's really all I got to say about this movie. I mean, I don't really have anything else. It's just there's a reason why I forgot I watched it, I guess. So
wow. But, I really enjoy this movie. This will be my final thoughts, I guess. I really enjoy it. I think it's a fun watch through. I particularly referenced the scene where he's sitting at the table and all the numbers are floating around his head. They made fun of it in The Hangover, but I reference that all the time. I think it's just an iconic shot that, as much as people might poke fun at it, it did transcend the film, and people still reference it today. So I think stuff like that this movie did is still pretty fun, and I just think the concept's pretty cool. So I give this movie a 55.
Alrighty. As far as my final thoughts go, I say that 21 is a boring, meandering film whose cast is among the biggest problems and fails to make any of its plot or ideas interesting or fun. And because of that, I give it a 25. It was definitely
almost exactly half.
A little weaker film in my opinion. But again, that is just my opinion. But that is going to be an end to the review segment of the episode. Adrian, I think it's time we start guessing some numbers.
Let's do it.
So, Adrian, can you tell me what the critic score is for Rotten Tomatoes for 21?
I'm going to say 52.
Ooh, not quite. It is 36% on the Rotten Tomatoes for the critic meter. And the critics did say that 21 could have been a fascinating study had it not been supplanted the true story on which it was based with mundane melodrama, which actually, to be fair, I did not read that before.
It feels like you read that and then gave your review.
I totally didn't. I mean, like I pulled it up, but I didn't read anything. All right, cool. Apparently, I'm right in line with the critics again. What would you say is the audience score for the
I'll say
film?
It can't be fresh. I'm gonna say 47.
Not quite. The audience score for 21 is 66%.
It is fresh. Wow.
Yes, it is in fact fresh. I don't know why I put emphasis on the word like that. Next up, for Metacritic. What do you think the critic score is on Metacritic?
I think this one, I'm going to stick with what I gave. I'm going to say 55.
You were a lot closer, but it is a 48. So you're not too far off. So, again, just showing that, it's the difference between the two aggregate websites. But that's going to bring us to an end for this episode. Adrian, where can people follow us online if they don't already?
The Drive Back Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Here on YouTube, if you're watching us, you can see us actually record the podcast. You can like, subscribe, hit the follow button, hit the bell. We post every Monday as well as additional content. And then anywhere else, if you want to listen to us while you're driving or commuting, the Drive Back Podcast, we post every Monday regularly.
That is absolutely correct. And next week, we have the return of Phone a Friend. We have a friend of ours that had requested that we watch The Scorpion King with Dwayne Johnson. We'll only be watching the first film because it was the only theatrically released one. Mm-hmm. The other ones are straight to DVD or TV movie type films, which don't count. I'm just kidding. We're not counting them that time. But who requested Scorpion King? Because I know you had added that onto the calendar.
I think I just added it. I actually don't. Maybe Justin?
Maybe.
I think it was supposed to be a rewatchable, wasn't it?
I don't remember, but I know someone recommended it.
I think we moved it around.
I think we moved it back, so I don't. Maybe it got lost in there somewhere. Whoever requested Scorpion King, sorry,
it's probably Justin.
Oh, that Justin. But that's going to be it for next week, and then the week after that, we have quite an interesting episode with two very different films, which seems to be the theme of most of our episodes. But thank you so much for watching or listening to the podcast. We love you so much. We'll see you next time here on The Drive Back. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Drive Back. Make sure to be on the lookout for new episodes every Monday, and make sure to follow us on social media.